Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar From Artistry to Activism, Amplifying Black and Asian Voices of Resistance. A special hello to all of the teachers and students joining us. We hope the first few weeks of school have gone well. And to all of our museum friends, thanks for spending the evening with us. And if you're joining us from across the country or from around the world, another country, please share that with us in the chat. We'd love to see where you're from. So I'm Margaret Yee. I'm manager of school and teacher programs at the Asian Art Museum. And with me is my colleague, Jennifer Miller, who is our navigator tonight and making sure we're all taken care of on our Zoom flight. Thank you, Jennifer.
Hello, everybody.
Speaking of flight, it does feel like we're all up in the air right now. Just looking out of the window yesterday here in the Bay Area with thick orange sky that was caused by the ongoing wildfires, it was hard not to wonder what's ahead for all of us. And so today it feels like this is just what we need, to hear from artists who are helping young people around the world to find their voices, to speak their truths, and to support each other. We're going to fill that eerie silence from yesterday with music, with the sharing of ideas, and with a sense of solidarity that'll keep us uplifted and able to find our way. So it's my huge pleasure to introduce our inspiring guest today. I'm just going to say a quick hello to everyone because we have a lot to do tonight. So first up are our partners from Hip Hop for Change. Khafre Jay is the founder and executive director of Hip Hop for Change. Welcome, Khafre, and thanks for being the MC for the first part of the show. We also have with us, Marlon Richardson, Education Director at Hip Hop for Change, who creates music under the name UnLearn The World. We'll get to hear Marlon present and also perform for us later tonight. Hello, Marlon.
Hello to all.
I'd also like to welcome Stephanie Liem, Hip Hop for Change's communications coordinator, who is also an activist working to build allyship between the Asian and Black communities. Thanks for joining us, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Eric Saz, event coordinator for Hip Hop for Change, who is instrumental in bringing on board the performers who are going to dazzle us later tonight, Kev Choice and Ruby Ibarra. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
And from across the world, we are thrilled to welcome two artists who will be displaying their works at our museum very soon. First, calling in from Mumbai is Jas Charanjiva, street artist and activist whose mural, Don't Mess With Me, will be displayed on our new art terrace. Welcome, Jas. And thanks for being with us so early in the morning where you are. And calling in from Hong Kong, let's welcome Choi Sai Ho, composer and multimedia artist. Sai Ho will be speaking about his music video, Black Moon, which will be part of the After Hope installation at our museum. Good morning to you also, Sai Ho.
Yeah, good morning.
So finally, we have two students with us as well who will be dialoguing with the artists, and they are artists and activists themselves. So please welcome two of our ArtSpeak interns, June Sosnoff and Sophia Shen. Hello, thanks for being with us. So as you can see, we have a great lineup tonight, lots of inspiring things to come. And just real quick, I just want you to know if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A. Jennifer and I will be monitoring, and then we'll save them for our big group discussion at the end. But for now, I'm going to turn things over to Khafre, who's going to be our MC for the first part of the show. Thanks, Khafre.
Of course, thank you so much. I'm really excited about this event and just about bringing a brighter light to the work that Asian and Black communities are doing. I think it's time. I think it's necessary to catalyze on all this energy that we've got going on around the world. And yeah, I'm just happy to be a part of it. So give a little quick overview on Hip Hop for Change for all of those that don't know of us. We're an Oakland 501c3 that advocates social justice through the culture of hip hop. And we raise funds for causes that enrich the lives of marginalized and historically oppressed communities around the Bay and hopefully soon beyond. What that looks like is I'd say education in a number of different ways. I think the problem is most people view hip hop through the lens of corporate depictions. And unfortunately, 3 companies own 90% of the depictions of hip hop culture. So most people think hip hop is one thing, rapping, gangster stuff and whatnot. But when you're a part of the culture and community of hip hop, it looks very different. From break dancers, DJs, graffiti artists, as we'll talk a little later on today, to street entrepreneurialism, advocacy, activism. Hip hop is a very, very inspiring and empowering culture that needs to be utilized. One of the artists that we work with, Kiana Selena from LA, said, yeah, people had our ancestors, but we had their kids. And that's never been more true. And that's never been more real. And if your kids aren't hip hop culture, they're definitely hip hop curious. And that's why it's really important to make sure that there's a good platform for local hip hop to be taught and given to the people in the truest sense. What we do is we run a grassroots street team that advocates social justice in communities to have cross-cultural conversations around 30 to 50,000 a year, talking about the values and the empowerment of hip hop culture. And that allows us to raise funds and bring them back to the community for education. In the last 7.5 years we've been around, we've taught 22,000 kids the history of hip hop, how to break dance, rap, do graffiti, DJ, and just how to have more beliefs in their own cultural expression. Hip hop expression is so important for getting kids grounded in their own values, their own self-worth, and for a lot of kids knowing that they can make it to places like the Asian Art Museum, to Carnegie Hall through their culture is really, really important, especially for communities that are impoverished and communities where people lack art classes or whatnot. We also throw events and shows that can get paychecks to local artists who are too political and too progressive for the radio, and really just trying to build a base of self-determination for hip hop culture in the Bay. But enough about us. One of the things that I'm really excited to point out is our mural project. We have a bunch of amazing mural artists from the Bay Area that usually are speaking truth to power in some way, shape, or form through an aerosol can, through stenciling, through wheat pasting, and those need to be highlighted. People call us all the time to help them create mural projects. And if you go down to Shotwell and 18th down in San Francisco right now, you'll see the latest art installation Hip Hop for Change has produced. We were asked by a wonderful community member to take advantage of a 75-foot by 8-foot wall space down there. And just like our shirts you'll see on me and Stephanie, we decided to write and paint "End White Supremacy" as large as we could. So please check that out. I think this is just a wonderful example to show people, the art and creativity coming from communities that don't often get to be seen in platforms like this. So if you get a chance, go down to Shotwell, see what we've done, see what we're working on. I don't want to take too much time because we've got so many talented and inspiring people to introduce. So I kind of want to get to Marlon Richardson, who is the education director at Hip Hop for Change, like Margaret said. This man is a prolific educator, building curriculums. And right now he's working on our newest program, Pipelines to Positivity. Hip Hop for Change is actually building a studio currently that's going to be free for kids under the age of 24 that Marlon Richardson is going to be at the forefront of. So if anybody wants to support Hip Hop for Change, let me just throw this out here before I pass it on. You can go to our website right now, and we're really investing in building this space. It's going to be free for kids under 24. So without further ado, let's get it over to Marlon, and he'll be talking about Asian influences on hip hop.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Peace and blessings, everybody. Thank you guys so much for having me. I've been really excited about presenting today. I stayed up I woke up very early this morning, not only to prepare my presentation, but also to make sure that the sky wasn't like blood red and orange and all of those different things. So, shout out of solidarity to everybody who woke up with orange skies in the Bay Area in the last 48 hours. It was quite a interesting moment for all of us. But nonetheless, we are here and we're excited. I'm full of all this kind of energy that I'm going to really showcase later on when I do my performance. But if you guys allow me to share my screen, I'm going to get into my presentation. And my presentation is really around not only just hip hop culture in general, but the Asian influence on hip hop culture. And unbeknownst to a lot of people, I think what we miss is that hip hop in general has a very symbiotic relationship with Asian culture. And Asian culture, one way or another, has helped to keep this culture alive, to start this culture to begin with, and to keep it moving forward. And I'll show you some clear examples of that. But what I want to give you guys first is a cursory just history lesson on hip hop as a culture, as a movement, and all those things. A little bit about myself. I am an MC by trade. I was born and raised in New York City, the birthplace of hip hop. I go by the artist name UnLearn The World. I got that name from my favorite movie and my favorite rap song, my favorite movie being Higher Learning. It was a movie directed by the late, great John Singleton, who also directed Boys in the Hood. And at the end of the movie, it shows in big, bright red letters the word unlearn. And at the time I was 13 years old, saw this movie, it had a very profound effect on the way that I thought. I never heard that term unlearn and what it meant and what it implied, basically to break down societal conditioning, right? I'm a really strong believer of our reality is created by the things we pay attention to, the things we agree to, and the things that we accept. And if we can alter those perceptions of agreement and acceptance, then we are actually breaking down those things that have conditioned us to be compartmentalized, those things that have removed the empathy and compassion from our day to day. And then we can redefine who we are as people to kind of live a life of purpose. So that's where the unlearn comes from. The world really comes from the artist Nas, who's my favorite artist by far. He came out with a song back in 1994 called The World Is Yours. And it was this song particularly that made me want to take an active interest in writing raps. Prior to that, I was a young kid at 10 years old, started just freestyling and improvisationally creating rhymes off the top of my head. But it was this album that I was inspired by that allowed me to buy a notebook and literally use it as a journal to share my thoughts and my opinions. And by the time I was 15 and in high school, I was not only recording demos, but actually trying to work behind the scenes within the music industry in different, incarnations and in different various record labels. And then working at record labels by the time I was graduating high school. And then in college, I was blessed enough to not only try to create my own independent record label with friends of mine from high school, but then also to tour nationally with artists like Killer Mike and artists like Big Daddy Kane, as well as Dead Prez, some of my favorite rap groups growing up. I'm now sharing stages with them. So that just speaks to the individual example for me about the transformative nature of this music and this culture, right? There's a couple of things that I want you guys to walk away with understanding. One is hip hop is not only a culture that's rooted in community, performance, and celebration, but hip hop is actually remix culture. It's not inventing anything new. In the immortal words of Grandmaster Caz, one of the first rappers, he said that hip hop didn't invent anything. Hip hop reinvented everything, right? And it's that legacy of remix culture that we invite and bring back into, or bring forward into the 21st century. We take all of the things that we are exposed to with regard to society, with regard to our own experiences, and we turn it on its face and we make it fresh, we make it dope, and then we offer it to the world as a sign that we were here, that we were relevant, and that we had value. And we continue that legacy today. Like I told you guys, not only am I an MC, but I'm also a beat maker and a producer. I've been producing for the last 10 years. I've dropped 4 albums in total, of which 3 of them have been all self-produced. Most recently, I dropped an album by the name of Light Years. What you see behind me is the actual album cover. One side is New York, where I was born and raised. The other side is San Francisco, where I am now, and where the Asian Art Museum is. So I say that to say that not only do I work with myself in terms of developing a sound, but I also work with other artists. I've done some acting and I've done some spoken word poetry, and all of that are forms of my expression that I use to show my activism with regard to the issues and things that I value as a human being, the issues that I want to bring attention to, whether it's gentrification in the inner city or issues going on in the Middle East or all over the world. I use my artistry as a form of expression for these causes and for these things. But really quickly, I just wanted to kind of get into what hip hop is from its inception and where it started, how it started, why it started, right? When we think of hip hop, we're typically thinking of someone like myself, maybe, or somebody else on stage with a microphone getting the crowd hype. And that's all true and that's all good. And I could sit here and ask you guys all day what you think hip hop is, and everybody would have their own different answer and everybody would be right, which is the amazing thing about it. But in addition to all the things that would be said about hip hop, I also want to reiterate that hip hop is, in fact, from its inception, a social justice movement. It is a movement that was created by young black and brown youth in the 1970s as a means of not only expressing rage, but also initiating a platform for healing, primarily, whether that was just the park jams or whether not the park jams themselves, those parties that started hip hop then became the place where rival gangs would have truces, where money would be generated in order to create community-based initiatives, things of that nature. And when we talk about where and how hip hop started, we're talking about the Bronx in the 1970s. Obviously, this is a picture of New York. Me having been born and raised, I'm a proud New York boy. So hip hop has always been around in my life. Hip hop starts in the Bronx in the 1970s. And it starts with this gentleman here, Clive Campbell. Clive Campbell and his family in 1967 migrate from Jamaica to the South Bronx. And as he gets older, it's his immigrant experience that informs his love for American music, particularly funk music. And by the time he is 18, 19 years old, he's a very popular DJ in the South Bronx, in his particular neighborhood. What makes him so popular is not only is he playing these obscure funk records during his house parties, but he's not at the bars and the nightclubs, and nor is he playing the popular songs that are on TV or on radio. He's using these obscure songs to introduce them to a new audience, those same young kids that I was telling you about, who are frequenting the neighborhood. Anybody from 12 to 16, 17 years old were going to Cool Herc parties at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. And it was at this building in particular, for a birthday party for his sister, that also served as a back to school jam for the neighborhood, where he created what was then called the merry-go-round technique. And this technique was very unique in that it took two turntables and a mixer, and it created a dynamic where he was taking the break beat from one funk record and mixing it and blending it or playing it after another break beat from another funk record. And this was in turn called the merry-go-round technique. The idea of taking that part of the song where all the singing goes away, all the music goes away, and it's just the percussion element, it's just the drums, and playing one break beat after another, essentially extending the break to the point where it can continuous play. That in and of itself, as he was doing it, became a performance. Because the DJ was now in this labor-intensive performance, he couldn't talk to the audience as he was doing this, so he needed an MC, a master of ceremonies, as you will, to come in and provide entertainment for the audience to keep them engaged. That MC would keep the audience engaged by not only creating call and responses, where he would talk to the audience and the audience would respond either in action or in words, but also creating these little raps and rhyme schemes as he was doing it. This connection, this synergy between the DJ and the MC is what created the basis for what we now know as hip hop music. And it was other DJs who took that style of DJing and then brought it throughout the Bronx and the rest of New York City. So we'd be remiss if we don't shout out Grandmaster Flash as well as Africa Bambaataa, who took the merry-go-round style of DJing and then essentially developed it into something completely brand new and innovative, never seen in the world prior to that. So hip hop consists of 5 different elements: DJing, breakdancing, MCing, graffiti, and knowledge. Knowledge being one of the main, even though it's the 5th element, is actually the most important, because it's through knowledge that we obtain an understanding of who we are in terms of self-awareness, self-discovery, but also use our artistic elements like DJing, breaking, MCing, graffiti. These artistic elements is what filters our knowledge as a means of transcendence and transformation. Transformation in that some of these kids who are partaking in this newfound form of artistry had been, in gangs, had been involved in violence, had been involved in drugs, and were now starting to move away from that kind of lifestyle simply for the sake of artistry and simply for the sake of self-discovery. So this transformative performative nature of this music and of this culture is what started gaining attention among the youth in the Bronx and all throughout New York City. I also call it a culture of transcendence, because once we understand who we are and we're now working towards better, it becomes the catalyst for us to transcend and rise above our circumstances. And after 47 years of existence, hip hop has shown itself to be a vehicle for this kind of transcendence, literally starting as a party in the Bronx for young people, now becoming a multi-billion-dollar industry that employs hundreds, if not thousands of people all throughout the world, and is now the predominant form of youth self-expression all around the world. And this wouldn't be done without Asian culture. You know, before we get into that, I want to also address and shout out the 4 core principles of hip hop, which are peace, love, unity, having fun. I always say that these are the 4 agreements before the popular book, The 4 Agreements. Often when I'm teaching classes, I always talk about our community agreements. These were the community agreements of the hip hop jams in the Bronx and all throughout New York. In order to attend the jam, you had to adhere to peace, love, being unified, and ultimately having fun and being safe. These are these 4 core principles that still exist today and are still adhered to one way or another in our culture. But I guess the best example to show Asian influence when it comes to hip hop culture really starts with breakdancing. Because breakdancing, as one of the first elements of hip hop, when we started the jams, it was young, primarily Latino kids who were creating these dance moves that were rooted in all these forms of dance that had existed previously. And in the same way that the DJ was taking from funk and jazz and all these different genres of music, the B-boys or break boys or break girls, known for such because they were dancing to the breaks of records, were also taken from different dance styles, not only mambo and salsa that they may have been exposed to from their parents or their grandparents, but also James Brown, who was one of the more predominant and preeminent performers of the 60s and 70s, who is one way or another considered the godfather of rap because of his performance style, because his music was sampled more than any other artist's music. But then they were also taking from martial arts. And it was these martial art movies that were becoming so popular, not only in the inner city, but all throughout New York City, that served as kind of the vehicle for not only young Black and brown people to be exposed to Asian culture, but to take that culture and then start to implement it into what they were doing themselves. So I wanted to show you very quickly. This is just a real quick display from some Shaolin monks in terms of martial arts. So you see there, I want you to if you paid a particular attention to the posturing and the posing and the acrobatics that you saw in this demonstration of martial arts, but this then gets filtered in to this.
And love put us into a groove. As soon as we started to move, the music played while our bodies displayed through the dance.
So you could see there is a synergy and there is a definite influence in the acrobatic kung fu moves that were being shown during these martial art films, and what then started being implemented into breakdance choreography and b-boys and b-girls using that to inform their own movements during these parties. It's a very interesting correlation that I make often. 1973 is when hip-hop starts. It's also the same year that Bruce Lee dies. Bruce Lee being a very prominent figure in martial art movies, having posthumously released the movie Enter the Dragon the same year that hip-hop starts. And I don't think this is not without coincidence one way or another. But what makes this movie so important is that it is not only the first time that an Asian male is playing the lead role in a major Hollywood picture, but this creates a resurgence in interest with regard to martial art movies. So much so that in New York City, there were whole movie theaters that were dedicated to playing nothing but martial art movies. and it exposes this culture and this way of life to a whole to a marginalized community that needs to feel empowered, that needs to feel strong in one way or another, and have those figures shown to them. But also it gives exposure to a whole different world. And one of the best examples of how this shows is in the group Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang being not only students, but fans of these martial art movies that were in these movie theaters, but also on Channel 5 in New York City on Saturdays from 12 to 3, you could watch martial art movies in a whole block. I remember being a kid myself and watching those movies, and by 3 p.m. I thought I knew all the secrets of the Shaolin Temple, and me and my little brother would fight. But Wu-Tang took this to a whole nother level. Influenced by these movies, they decided to take a collection of individual artists and make a super group that used the Asian martial art aesthetic as the vehicle by which they expressed their raps and spoke about their experience as young kids from Staten Island and Brooklyn. This group would then become a legendary multi-platinum selling group all throughout the late 90s into the 2000s, and to this day are still very much relevant figures in regard to the hip-hop industry, whether it's RZA, the main producer, who's there in the middle, producing not only beats for other rappers, but movie scores like Kill Bill and other movies like that, and also directing and acting himself, or artists like Method Man, who are not only prominent rappers in the hip-hop community, but they're also, highly acclaimed actors in Hollywood. So they have taken this love for martial arts movies and have introduced it to a whole brand new audience. And it's not just the martial arts that people started to gain an affinity and an interest to, but it was all the Eastern philosophy that came with that. Buddhism, meditation, all the wellness protocols that we were learning from this culture were now also being introduced to a brand new audience who prior to martial arts would not have known any of that. But I also want to speak about fashion and art. What you see here are the founders of Bathing Ape, which is a fashion line, an Asian street line out of Japan. And this, in the early 2000s, played a very critical role with regard to hip-hop. Most famous artists in hip-hop were starting to wear and you would see Bape clothing in hip-hop videos, particularly artists like who you see here, Pharrell Williams of the Neptunes, with the founder of Bathing Ape right next to him. You also have artists like Big Sean, who just recently released an album, also donned in Bape clothing. And speaking about remix culture, as we were talking about remix culture before, clothing, where this is the Air Force One sneaker that's very popular not only in hip hop but in the inner city in general. What Bape was able to do is revolutionize the entire look of the Air Force One sneaker by putting a star where the swoosh was, the Nike swoosh, and repurposing it. Here's an example of that. Not only is this Bape, yes.
I hate to cut you off, but we need to open it up for questions to keep this on schedule.
Certainly. We could start taking questions. I'll go ahead and stop.
Great.
Sharing my
sorry to cut you short, but we're going to try to keep this thing on schedule. So at this time, we are going to have our Art Speak interns, June and Sophia, ask questions to Marlon in regards to his presentation.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Marlon, for that presentation. It's so interesting. I never even thought about how these martial arts movies influenced the hip hop dances, and like, that's amazing. So I actually wanted to ask you a more personal question, because I've been reading about your work and I saw that you've had some experience teaching music in juvenile detention centers. And I think there's a lot of negative stigma around these centers. So I think it's amazing that you're trying to create a positive space for these youth. And I wanted to ask, why do you think this work is important, and what personally motivates you to take on that mentorship role?
I appreciate the question. The long and short of it is that I often say that I owe a debt to the 15-year-old version of myself. I see myself very much in the lives of those children in juvenile detention, because they remind me of where I could have been had my life gone a different way, had I made different decisions in my life, had hip hop not actually influenced me to want to be a better human being and had given me some sort of goal to look at. When I was in my formative years in adolescence, 13, 14 years old in New York City, with everything around me from my community and my neighborhood and the people that I was exposed to, it was important for me to try to define what kind of person I wanted to be. And hip hop allowed for that to happen. Whereas for a lot of my friends, unfortunately, they fell victim to the streets. And they, I had friends of mine who were in Rikers by the time they were 15 years old. So when I go to these juvenile centers, I see the 15-year-old version of me. I see the 15, 16-year-old version of my friends who made those poor decisions. But having made that poor decision doesn't necessarily mean you are cursed for the rest of your life. It was a mistake. You are a child. And I think it's being in those environments allow us the opportunity to allow these kids who have been hardened by their lives to become children again, to become soft again, for their stress response signals to be lowered enough for them to become to learn, and not only learn but to express themselves in a way that they have never been able to give them the microphone and for their voices to be heard, probably arguably for the first time in their lives. And I think that transformative quality is already inherent in hip hop and needs to be shown to the younger generation.
Awesome. And because of the time, I think we should just go ahead and bring on Stephanie, if that's all right.
Yep.
Awesome. Sorry, we're trying to keep this on schedule, folks, but I am really excited to bring on Stephanie Liem. She is the communications manager at Hip Hop for Change, and one of the most amazing people I've had a pleasure of knowing in my life. Just a hard worker, and she's going to be talking about bridging the divide between the Asian and Black communities. So Stephanie, welcome.
Let me share my screen real quick. Okay, present. Okay, cool. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Stephanie. I'm the communications coordinator at Hip Hop for Change. I am I'm Asian American activist, and I'm specifically an Indonesian American activist. My work revolves around building solidarity between the Black and Asian community. And let's get right into this with a quote from Enter the Dragon. "Ghettos are the same all over the world. They stink," Jim Kelly said. This is your classic Black and Asian movie explaining to us that we have a lot more in common than you think. A lot of us from Asia came from not much. We suffered from a lot of the same problems. We fled from oppressive governments like Indonesia, Burma, Vietnam, and we came here to escape from poverty, oppression, and police brutality. Yet the dialogue around Black and Asian communities is focused on our differences, specifically our differences in skin color. But in order to bridge the divide, we must emphasize these commonalities. We realize that we're not waging a war against Black people. We're waging a war against white supremacy, poverty, police brutality. And we understand that this war is rooted in misunderstanding. So instead of scapegoating each other for our community's problems, we should focus on fighting together against these institutional problems. And when your Asian grandparent tells you that they hate Black people because they were once robbed by a Black person, help them understand that their frustrations don't lie in anti-Blackness. They lie in anti-poverty. Help them realize that this is a war against white supremacy, and that's how we build that divide. So this is inherently difficult because a lot of us have bought into the model minority myth. America fed us this lie. If we stayed silent, we were complacent, we followed the rules, we too could have a shot at the American dream. But that's essentially a lie because it's a ploy to pit us against each other, and it erases our identities, it erases our resilience and our struggles and reduces us to just our success stories. In buying into the model minority myth, we allow anti-Blackness to permeate into our communities, and we are trained not to question authority. We distance ourselves from other minorities, acting as if we don't suffer from the same problems. And in doing so, we don't practice our democratic rights. Asian Americans are the fastest growing population in the United States, yet we have the lowest rates of voter turnout. We demonize people who break the rules and the laws, but the laws don't serve them. And in doing so, we reject Blackness and strive towards whiteness because we enjoy this privilege. But the funny thing is that a lot of our parents and grandparents are advocates. They're very strong advocates for democracy in Asia. So why not here? It's because, again, we've bought into the model minority myth. So is this really a matter of politics of survival? Because a lot of us are thriving here, and it doesn't seem as if that's the case. It's because we benefit from this privilege and we became silent and complacent to survive. But in doing so, we empowered white supremacy. We aren't the targets of police brutality here. So is that why our activism stops here? We enjoy this privilege more than anything. And we should note that the model minority myth is also related to this theory of racial triangulation. In America's white gaze, Asian Americans are positioned as higher than Black Americans. And when we do that, it pits us against each other, just like what America wants us to do. We've grown scared and we don't practice our democratic rights because we like our position, we like where we are, we enjoy the privilege. But what we don't realize is that this is all very dependent on white America's gaze and interest at a specific time. Our racial geometry pivots and slides according to white America's gaze. In times of COVID-19, where we're seen as a virus, our position slides closer to Black people. In times where we're considered communist threats, our position again slides. So it's a trap, and they want you to fall for it. So just from the statistics themselves, we can see that Asian Americans are still poor, they're still unemployed. A lot of us haven't even completed high school. Yet the model minority myth claims that all of us are successful, we're affluent, we have sufficient education, yet that's clearly not the case. And it erases our identities, our resilience, our strength to come up from these struggles. So let's dissect this one right here. Why do we lionize Ho Chi Minh, but we think of Malcolm X as a radical terrorist? Is it because Malcolm X was armed? Because Ho Chi Minh also was armed. He served in the Vietnam War. Is it because Malcolm had communist leanings? Because that's also the case for Ho Chi Minh. This stems from anti-Blackness. There's a halo effect surrounding Asian people because we assume them to be complacent, obedient, but we forget that they were both fighting for self-determination for their people. We forget that these are independence movements rooted in fighting white supremacy, and we don't stress these commonalities enough. These are the images that America doesn't want you to see. We have never been silent. Asian people have stood up for their rights in their countries. We have fought against the police. We have fought against oppressive governments. And they don't want you to see this because it empowers us. It makes us question authority. It helps us break complacency, which is very unlike the model minority. How else can we bridge the divide? We give the youth education rooted in cultural pedagogy. We don't give them that whitewashed history that doesn't talk to multiculturalism. We give them education rooted in multiculturalism so that they have the tools to fight white supremacy when they grow older. And throughout history, there have been a lot of outbreaks of racism against the Asian community. For example, the Chinese Exclusion Act, the Vietnam War, Immigration Act. And in all of these instances, Black people have always organized on our behalf. They are always fighting for us. And we don't see that because our history books, they want to wash out Afro-Asian solidarity so that we continue to fight amongst each other. This is what Black and Asian solidarity looks like. You don't see these images in our history books. You don't see these because this empowers us. This empowers us to unite against white supremacy. This was Hip Hop for Change's Black and Asian Rally for Solidarity in 2020. We fostered community spaces, and community spaces are another form of cultural pedagogy because the youth learn about what it's like to have these spaces for Asian and Black people to come together and collectively heal from their trauma. So how else does Hip Hop for Change build solidarity? Through representation, culturally responsive pedagogy, arts education. We empower our youth to express themselves through hip hop culture so that they can unite and heal together. We give them cross-cultural education rooted in dismantling white supremacy so that we can all resist and ally together. So this is what we do. And last slide. So just don't forget, we are the dragons. They colonized us. They tried to tame us. They wanted you to forget your power. But remember who we are, what we stand for, and use that power to fight injustice everywhere. Because oppression is global, oppression is here, and oppression needs to be fought here too. So ignite your flame for our fellow Black Americans. Thank you. Visit Hip Hop for Change.
Awesome. Wonderful. I think we have time for one really, really quick question from June.
Yes, so that was amazing. My question is, there's a whole history of Asian solidarity with other communities, especially within the civil rights movement and with the farm workers movement. Do you think that discussing these historical examples of solidarity could aid in connecting Asian folks with the current social movement for Black lives?
Definitely, I definitely think so. The problem with our current education system is that it's rooted in white supremacy. So a lot of us haven't learned about these acts of solidarity. We haven't learned about our own histories. We haven't learned that our people aren't silent. And learning about these movements, they can definitely empower us to speak up. They can empower us to vote, to practice our democratic rights, and realize that we too are struggling from a lot of these problems. And in order for us to attack these institutional problems, we must unite with our Black Americans and other POC groups so that white supremacy can be dismantled and our youth can have access to the education that they deserve.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next up, y'all. Yeah, let's give Steph a hand, man. I'm really excited. That was a great presentation. Wonderful. I'm just so proud to work with you, Stephanie. But next up, y'all, we have an amazing Oakland artist, pianist, an MC, a producer, band leader, music historian, master degree in jazz, and just all around one of the dopest hip hop artists I've had a chance to work with, a prolific educator as well in his own right. Kev Choice recently featured a new video working with the SF Symphony and the current series showcasing a mixture of classical music and hip hop. Check him out if you have time. Without further ado, y'all, Kev Choice.
Peace and blessings to everyone. Thank you for that lovely introduction, that beautiful introduction. It's so good to be in this space, sharing space with you all. Appreciating the conversation and just the analogies and the history. And learning a lot myself. Just want to share a little bit with you all. It's all about uplifting, educating. As he said, I'm an educator here in Oakland, at Oakland School for the Arts. Shout out to all the educators in the building. You know, when I was young, I used to do stuff like a lot of classical music. But then I got into that hip hop vibe and just became find a way to bring it together. It's all about coming together, bringing communities together, people together. I just wanna get back to normal, bending corners like I used to do. After work, hit uptown and have a sip or two. Tip the bartender a few, I know they need it now. Mostly been alone, probably because I was a sheltered child. Can't imagine mama telling me I couldn't leave the house. Every time she fell asleep, I probably would be sneaking out. Gotta sit up in front of computers just to teach them now. What if they ain't got access? We just gonna lead them out? We gonna have to go another route. 2020 still gonna be the year we do all the things we dreamed about. Put this music out. They pushed back my album release. Lock me down, I'll drop a project a week. I never cease. Plus I keep my ear to the streets. People looking at this Rona like a mark of the beast. I've been staying in the kitchen trying to cook up a feast. Even talking to people normally we hardly would speak, but I guess this guy's way of telling us to take it slow. The Bay was the first in the country they told to stay at home. In place, all I need is food, music, shelter, and a wifey that'll get sick with me like Idris Elba's. Missing both my seeds, although they in good places. Thanking both their mothers for stable situations. My son, mama, doctor, she said, sit still, be patient. People don't know they contagious, that's why this stuff dangerous. So every breath I'm taking, I'm thanking Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, whoever you put faith in. Keep praying, meditating, praises to the highest. Remember, behind every gray cloud a silver lining, y'all. Keep praying, meditating, praises to the highest. Remember, behind every gray cloud a silver lining. All my rebels, the revolution is here. Hey yo, yes, the rhythm, the rebel. Until we overthrow the whole system, we can't settle. The call for revolution echo from ghetto to ghetto. At the protest, fists in the air, ready to explode. Out in the streets with my people, feel the spirit. I put it in the music, I put it in the lyrics. I've been known as conscious, been speaking political. Bum rush the sounds I made 5 years ago. Another revolution still marching to the beat. No justice, no peace, defund the police. Breonna Taylor killer still free. Black people hanging from trees, We are the change that we seek to come on. Keep looking for that silver lining. One day this all gonna be behind us. Keep looking for that silver lining. And keep shining. Keep looking for that silver lining. One day this all gonna be behind us, y'all. Keep looking for that silver lining. And keep shining. Thank you, y'all. My name is Kev Choice.
Amazing. Everybody, just give it up for Kev Choice, man. Thank you so much, brother. So beautiful. As always. As always.
Appreciate it.
Yes. So for the work that I'm going to share, the work Black Moon, back to 2015, we had a show to do. We decided to make a new track. And so at that time, okay, yes, okay. So at that time, I make a music composition. It's just instrumental, and I sent it to my friend Jin Wong. He acted the lyrics and the vocals, and sent it back to me, and I mix it and finalized the music track. And then I think it's 2017. At that time, I had a show to do, the Sauna Hong Kong Music Festival. And after the music festival, I think the music deserved to have a music video. And so I brought my friend Jason Lam to make the visuals with me. And so Jennifer, would you please show us the graphic visuals? Okay, yeah. So you can see that the left video is the result after the post-production I made, and the right one is actually is the CG footage by Jason. And so what I did on the post-production is I enlarge, diminish, and rotate the visuals. And in the editing software, Ableton Premiere Pro. And so you can see the difference. But I think for the zoom here, it's a bit not really very smooth to see it. And right. And yes, that's enough, yeah. And okay, so I think Jennifer, would you please show us the 2-minute expert of Black Moon? So the challenge is to integrate the computer graphics and the live footage. And wait a minute, let me show you again the slide. Okay, and yes, so for the after the post-production, you see is that I use the computer graphics to make to adjust and adding some post-production, and also as you can see, there are some photos of the real moon. Actually, it's the photos that I took the real moon for many years, and so I added it to the video, and also mixing with some live footage on it, and I think what I do is try not to follow the traditional dominated singer-oriented music videos in Asia, and of which singers appear all over the music videos. And if you see those commercial music videos, it's always, I mean, in Asia, it's always, you can see the faces of the singers from the beginning to the end. And yeah, so I think for me, I like to do something really quite unique, but at the same time keeping the styles and playing the graphics, the motion graphics, and etc. etc. I think that's what I want to share, the work, and also show you this this process. And,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Right now we have Sophia to ask you a question.
Thank you, Sai Ho. I think it's always really interesting to see all of the hard work and expertise that goes into each art piece. So I'm really glad that you got the chance to share that.
thank you.
Yeah, I noticed some aspects of maybe indirect activism and protest within the lyrics and the vibe of your multimedia project, Black Moon. And I was wondering, what emotions and experiences do you channel when you're creating this piece, and what do you want your audience to take away from your art?
For me, I always like to do something that is like try to think out of the box, and try to do something that maybe most of the people would would do it in this way. But for me, I like to take some alternatives and to see the possibilities. And also, and there's another thing called DIY culture, and the stuff you do it yourself. And for me, I like to do something, and I mean, I want to see something. Can I do something on my own, or can I collaborate with others and make something that maybe some people might like it, and I mean, I'm lucky. I have my friends that they are very good at writing the lyrics, and their singings are really unique, and also some of them are very good at making the computer graphics. And by the way, the computer graphics actually is done on open framework, and so that's a computing language. And I mean, because in recent years, the works that I did, I try to bring more people to collaborate with me, and in my early days when I do the artworks, I usually do it myself because it's more convenient in a way, and I don't know, can I answer your question or not?
Well, I think my takeaway is that you are very independent, and I think it empowers your audience when you are constantly pushing boundaries and showing them that new new frontiers of art are possible through mixing computer and your music and digital design. Thank you.
Yes, and I like to maybe I'm good at the audio and the visuals, so I try to see how far I can go, and I'm happy that I'm here to share my works with you people, and it's quite interesting and quite meaningful and special. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Choi Sai Ho. We really appreciate you being here, brother. Thank you. Also, next, Jas, are you ready to go?
Yep, I believe so. Let's hope this works out this time.
Awesome, awesome.
Shall I share the screen?
Please.
All right, let's hope this works and everyone can see. How does it look, guys?
I think it's looking good.
Yeah, so I can start?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I wanted to start off with this artwork by Norman Rockwell from 1964. It's called The Problem We All Live With. It's one of the most iconic images from the civil rights movement. And it was the first painting that made me cry. And I credit this artwork for driving me to use my art as a tool to educate and create change. And for those who aren't familiar with this painting, it depicts a 6-year-old Ruby Bridges being escorted to school by the deputy U.S. Marshals. And she's amongst the first African-American students to desegregate a school in New Orleans. And she was received with death threats by some of the white folk who were against Black and white children sharing a classroom. And you can notice, you'll see the tomato that's been thrown on the wall that's just missed her. There's also a big racial slur on this wall, but I've cropped it out. And though the white protesters are not visible, we are looking at the screen, at the scene from their point of view. So we're actually standing next to them. And that sort of gives me the chills. So I often say, don't be on the wrong side of history. And when I do say that, I always think of this painting. And as an artist, this piece of work really inspires me. It's a great example of how an artwork can stir something within us. And in this case, it's anger and deep sorrow. And it reminds us, I feel all of us, or most of us, that we cannot allow ourselves to be bystanders. And this is why art is so important in creating change. So I'm a street artist here in Mumbai. I've been living here for 10 years in Mumbai. And street art is my preferred choice of raising awareness and sharing my perspective on topics that are important to me. And it excites me to know strangers will stumble upon my work, and some of them will be impacted by it. And I wanted to start off with showing this piece of work of mine. It's a wheat paste. I had gone out one night and wheat pasted this in my area. And it says, someday humanity will reach a tipping point and finally realize that loving animals and being inspired by animals also involves not hurting animals. As simple as this piece is, chances are people will stop and stare at this more than any of my more elaborate work, because they'll just read anything that's handwritten on a wall. And the reason why I like this piece as much as I do is because it solved an issue for me. After watching countless videos on factory farming a few years back, I felt a lot of anger towards society, big industry, and the government. And I was struggling on how do I talk to people about our food choices without being preachy or without sounding angry or maybe even coming across like I'm shaming people. I wouldn't want to do that, but sometimes, it can come across like that. So this type of tone that you see here, that a quote from Moby, this type of, the tone, if I was to use hatred, if I was to use, not hatred, but anger, it's only going to turn people off. And because the majority of the society isn't ready to accept a world without meat and dairy, though most of us love animals. So Moby's quote is quietly powerful without being preachy. So now imagine finding 10 more quotes similar to this on the same topic in your area. And each one aimed to open your mind and educate you on the way animals are treated in factory farms and how we are paying for this with our lunch money. And at the bottom of these posters, imagine there being a mysterious hashtag or website where you'll discover a collection of engaging articles and videos that will make you question everything about the food industry. This is called a campaign at a very simple but effective level. And anyone can get up and they can go do this today after this talk. They can take a marker and a piece of paper, make some wheat paste. You're more than welcome to reach out to me if you want further advice on how to start simple campaigns. They will grow into more sophisticated campaigns, but sometimes keeping it simple could be a very, very effective way of doing it. So after I had found the right tone of voice to talk about animal agriculture, I used my graphic design skills to up my game. And I'm waiting for the right time to create a small army and to kickstart an awareness program. So here's a piece on the same concept of being inspired by animals and not harming them. This was a mural that was embraced by many, and it's lighthearted and has pretty colors. Here it is as a full piece on a building. It took me 6 days to paint this, and during the last 2 days of completion, I can't tell you how many residents that lived in the area, children, adults of all ages, they came over to thank me, and they came to tell me that they found this artwork uplifting. This was a sponsored piece, so I had restrictions on what I could do with this piece, and the brief for this was just to create a portrait, and not a heavy statement piece. If the goal was to bring more awareness and action, then I would have taken Moby's quote and I would have condensed it into maybe 3 or 4 words at the top of my mural. And I one day look forward to being able to have that opportunity to paint again on a large scale and be able to, talk about this cause. This next piece here that you see is from my awareness series called You Snooze, We All Lose. And I've added text in a clever way to help tie the concept together and to make my piece more likable as well. And I say likable because of the cleverness in using Hindi script and English script. So at the top of my poster, there's the multilingual script that says imbalance, not imbalance, but imbalance. And bal, which you see in Hindi, is hair for Hindi, the hair on your head, hair. And as you can see, if you make that connection, this piece is about gender inequality, and which many of us begin to experience and often accept at a very young age. So the text at the bottom of it says, resist what you've learned. I used the schoolgirl's braids to depict the equality scale, something that's not entirely obvious, but once it's discussed or maybe somebody spots it, then they're like, oh yes, of course. And then as you can see, you can take elements from your main artwork and create additional material to use on the streets. And so it becomes more of like a more dynamic campaign. And when people start to see maybe the same color and the same font, they start to realize it's part of the same family. And the idea is to put this out basically at the same time and do it within a certain time and maybe grow it into and expand it into something else. So this brings me to my most recognized piece. It's called Don't Mess With Me, which will be housed at the Asian Art Museum very soon. And it was created after a sexual assault and murder of a medical student in Delhi in December 2012. It caught global attention. This incident had sent shockwaves throughout India, prompting the nation to just come out to the streets and demand safety measures for women like never before. At least in our generation, we've never seen that before. I created this piece for my company that I co-own called Culture Shop. It's an artist platform in Mumbai. And the purpose of this artwork was just to keep the dialogue alive. And it's been now 7 years, and people are still seeing this artwork and then telling others who may not have seen it before. They're telling others what this artwork means. So the word has definitely spread, and my purpose in just keeping that dialogue going is working well so far. So shortly after this piece was launched at our store, I began pasting it on the streets of Bandra. So it's natural for me as a street artist to want to put stuff out on the street, and a lot of stuff I make, it just, I don't know, it just, I create things maybe not even for a purpose to put out on the street, but it just ends up being something that is good for the streets. So we're in an area called Bandra. It's a suburb of Mumbai. I like to call it the Brooklyn of Bombay. It's a very creative area. A lot of young people live there, so it's a great place for street art. It was a great place for me to start the Pink Lady there, so people could photograph it, talk about it, be interested in it, find out who did it. And anytime somebody discovers it for the first time and says, hey, who's this artist? Oftentimes within, like, say, the first half hour or so, in a big city like Bombay, somebody will tag me. In some ways, Bombay is a big city, but also a small city. I pasted this artwork in various sizes, allowing it to pop up every few months in different locations. I didn't want to overdo it and have it all over the place. I didn't want to cause fatigue. I also made sure to paste her outside 2 popular cafes, one in Bandra and then one in an area called Lower Parel. I did this because I knew that there's going to be foot traffic. There's going to be people with phones taking pictures, and like everyone does. But I just knew that this would be a way to like reach out to people. And this being a grassroots thing, I didn't seek out media attention. I didn't, send out a press release or anything like that. It just organically started to happen. But then the press came. And so this piece is called Don't Mess With Me, but it organically became the Pink Lady to people who saw it on the streets and people who started writing about her and talking about her on their own social media. And the artwork was no longer referred to as an it. It was now a she. So people began describing her as a real human being, and soon enough, she began getting noticed by national and international press. One day, the editor of BuzzFeed India had discovered her at one of those cafes I just spoke about and posted a picture asking who the artist is. And within 3 minutes, she got her answer. And then in 2 days later, I was on BuzzFeed wearing my Pink Lady t-shirt, talking about why India needs more feminism. And that's when I would say it went viral for the first time. There have been many peaks for attention and visibility when it came to the Pink Lady over the 6-7 years. I'm very fortunate about that. And I would say, so this being on BuzzFeed was the first time the Pink Lady reached a large audience, and since then it's received many opportunities to do so. I've seen and been tagged on quite a few pictures of women wearing the Pink Lady out at the Women's March over the years. This is my friend and activist Purna Jagannathan. She's in the TV show Never Have I Ever, the TV series, not TV series, but Netflix series. And this is the founder of Amplifier, Cleo. So Purna was someone I had asked because I was very angry when the juvenile that was part of this rape had been released, because we had a 3-year, law for juveniles. And so I for the first time, I wanted the Pink Lady to say something. Otherwise, she had been quiet on the streets. It was just an image of her. So I called up Purna and said, hey, what should I say, have the Pink Lady say? Because I'm too angry, and it wouldn't align with, you know, Pink Lady's personality. So she had said, justice, we're coming for it. So yeah, so then there was a speech bubble for that. That started getting a lot of attention as well once speech bubbles started to appear. There's many things that happen with the Pink Lady when people stumble upon them. There was a teacher from California who had taken a picture of the Pink Lady, found out who was the artist behind the Pink Lady, started following me. And then maybe a year or two later, he sends me these images. And then a day later, someone sends me a WhatsApp message, which you see on the right. And it's this friend of a friend is saying, hey, you know, on my family chat, I just saw the Pink Lady. My cousins were given this assignment to create the Pink Lady. So this teacher in California, he was a substitute teacher, and he was in a school where there didn't seem to be much diversity. And on the school plan, in his class plan, in the curriculum, he was supposed to talk about Van Gogh, but he decided to ditch Van Gogh and talk about the Pink Lady. So he showed the kids a small, short documentary on me and the Pink Lady, and then their assignment was to create her. Every year I put up the Pink Lady in a certain spot, which is opposite one of the cafes I mentioned. And it's most well known over there. That's where they see the Pink Lady the most. And the wall got painted over. There was discussion in that building, it's an apartment building, you know, whether they create, not paint over the Pink Lady and have a little spot, you know, around her. Surrounding her, but they, I guess, decided to paint over her. So I tend to get a lot of mails saying, you know, put her back, because she's also someone, when people are driving by on their daily commute, they pop their heads out of an auto rickshaw and just want to see her in the morning, which is really nice. This piece.
That's amazing.
Thank you. I'm basically done. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say this piece is a piece that was not in Bandra where I was normally putting her up, but in South Bombay, because I took a day off just to hang out in South Bombay. And so I took little pieces of the Pink Lady, small sizes, and put them up. And then someone from the Asian Art Museum, at the time I didn't know her, she had found her. She stumbled upon a small piece. It was this piece. And then a few years later, when I was asking people for a wall in San Francisco, because I was had just landed in San Francisco for a month, and said, hey guys, can you guys find me a wall? She was one of the first people to introduce herself and tell me that she works at the Asian Art Museum and she'd like her to try to make something happen. And she did. That's it.
Thanks, Jas.
Thank you, everyone.
And I think June now has a question for you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you, how have you been impacted by the art you created? And do you find that you've been exposed to some subject matters or social issues that you wouldn't have been had you not pursued art?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like if I hadn't pursued art, well, that's not true, actually. I feel like if I hadn't pursued art, I would have still somehow done something, because I'll tell you, we didn't have social media when I was growing up. And on our book covers, we would always have to cover them with like paper bags. That's what we used to do. And so I used to always draw stuff. And I wouldn't draw like pretty pictures or doodles. I used to always have a statement, you know, on those book covers. And so that would, I would say that would be kind of like that would have been equivalent to my Facebook status, you know, back then when I was a kid. So I always had this urge to like put messages out. And when I was young, as well, I had taken, a box of chalk and just started going all over the sidewalk and writing messages and things. Because it was exciting me of having someone stumble upon something and read it and maybe think about what I have to say. And I don't know how, if my, whatever I was saying was impactful at being so young and stuff, but I had that urge. So I feel like even if I had done something else, not art, I would have still, maybe have done some graffiti, just to get some messages out. I've always been somebody who's who's even as a kid, just constantly like worrying about people who have problems, who are facing problems. And that urge I have in like a fire to want to help other people. So so me being an artist or not, I think I would have somehow done something.
Awesome, amazing. Jas Charanjiva, I appreciate you as well being here and sharing your art with us as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're gonna move forward to our next portion. Hip hop. Y'all saw him before. Y'all saw him speaking about hip hop and influences from the Asian community, but you have not heard UnLearn The World, aka Marlon Richardson, rap yet. So introducing UnLearn, y'all.
Yes. I am unmuting myself. I'm gonna do a real quick sound check, make sure everybody can hear my music as well as my voice. Let's see. Shout out to everybody who's been presenting. Shout out to everybody who's been tuning in with us. Thank you guys so much for all of it. It's incredible. I'm so inspired by everything that we're seeing and watching, and it's really a good time to express our creativity. So with that said, let me get into this new record that I have. I'm working on a video for this. This is called Your Favorite Rapper's a Liar. This is a self-produced song off of my latest album called Light Years. Now on all streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes, all of the things. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. Let's see. Can you guys hear that? Can anybody give me a sign about what you can hear? Yes. All right, let's get into it. Yo, your favorite rapper's a liar and I can prove it. Step into your office like Ice Cube at Ruthless. Slum Stanley Kubrick, Harry Potter on a broomstick. My brain's a vision board, no paper, no glue stick. You are not your Facebook or Instagram smile. You are not your job title or Tinder profile. You made from the same things that made the stars in River Now, my guy. Hold the weight of the world on my shoulders like Atlas. Doper than a drum player with a drug habit. I'm in between the genie and Aladdin. Microphone, Michelangelo, painting God, touching Adam. In the beginning, we was chilling, writing all of these verses. My homies could see the vision. Walked in the record labels and told them it was my time. They said, no, sorry. Damn, Americans love tacos and hand sanitizer. Word. Lock up El Chapo, give tax breaks to Pfizer. Facts. Commander-in-Chief started trade wars with China. Facts. COVID-19, now we can't trade saliva. Facts. Everything that's televised is there to hypnotize you. If you really think you're running things, the truth will paralyze you. If the president's telling us everything is fine, tell him. Man, this is my motivation for why I be writing poetry. Tired of people telling me everything I'm supposed to be. I am not your Moses or Buddha under your boat tree. I was broke as hell, even a chick with folding groceries. Appetite for destruction with a tendency to overeat. Sometimes I overthink, it's hard for me to go to sleep. I get sleep paralysis, feels like the devil's choking me. And if I suffocate, then I'll just battle rap the ghost of me. Unlearn. Yes, your favorite rapper's a liar and I can prove it. Yo, listen, yo, your favorite rapper's a liar and I can prove it. Man, yeah. I don't care about knowledge or wealth. Your favorite rapper's a liar. He ain't honest with himself. Let's go. Thank you, everybody. Peace and love. You can follow me on Instagram, UnLearn The World. You can follow Hip Hop for Change, Hip Hop the number 4 Change. Again, Light Years album in stores, UnLearn The World. Shout out to Asian Art Museum and all my fellow colleagues.
Yes.
Actually, we got time for you to do one more, brother.
Do we? Okay, let's go. All right. I want to see in the chat. Give me some ones in the chat. Let me see some ones in the chat if you want me to keep it going.
I see ones. I see
a whole lot of ones. All right, we're gonna keep this thing rolling. All right, why not? All right. Speaking of which, let's get into this record here. This record right here is co-produced by my man DJ Saurus, aka Eric, our event coordinator. This is a song off the same album, Light Years, called Moonlit. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get into it. Y'all can sing along. It don't stop. It don't quit. It don't stop. It don't quit. It don't stop. To the beat, y'all. Rock on. Yes, yes, y'all. You don't stop. Say hip hop. Yes, yes, y'all. You don't stop. To the beat, y'all. Rock on. Yes, yes, y'all. You don't stop. Say hip hop. Yo, yo, yo. I never learned about the birds and the bees. A heartbroken little boy turned into me. Watching leaves change, fleur-de-lis, burning trees in the streets. Seen them laugh, seen them cry, seen them bleed, so I breathe. Last night's party was today's blurred memories. Advil, eye drops, and 5-hour energies. My work ethic like this tend to me, but am I happy asking for a friend? And that friend is me. Lost friends asking God protect me from my enemies. When you're getting food for thought, better check the recipe. The places I go mentally are somewhere between Farrakhan lectures and drug dealer documentaries. I gave it all I got to make it off the block, but people pray for rain, then complain when the water drops. All I did was grow what I got in my cerebellum. I want my bouquet of flowers while I'm still around to smell them, so I tell them. Don't ask about the guest list. We up in the building till the fake ones exit. Feeling like I'm Biggie on my party and bullshit. Even in the dark, I'ma shine, I'll be moonlit. It don't stop and it don't quit and it don't stop and it don't quit and it don't stop, cause the real never leave. Shall I proceed? Yes, indeed. On the mic, I'm a sight to witness. Ask the Most High for forgiveness. Shine light on my bright spirit whenever I write lyrics. And as a little kid, I wished I could be light-skinned. And now my black boy joy destroying they white privilege. Paint outside the lines and adding color to the canvas. Know I am on this planet. I finally understand it. Got all that I was asking. It's high and hard not to panic. I'm nervous around these cops. I don't want to be Oscar granted. I talk to God when I'm ranting. Hope that he got my answers. Cut from a different fabric since I was rocking my glasses and that little black jacket that I always wore. Now a dude go on tour, I know the time. What I need a rollie for? I'm squeezing my 44 cause I'm fighting a holy war. If heaven had a ghetto, it would welcome me with open doors. Angels telling me to go for yours. I show my gratitude for what I got and then I go for more. Don't ask about the guest list. We up in the building till the fake ones exit. Feeling like I'm Biggie on my party and bullshit. Even in the dark, I'ma shine, I be moonlit. It don't stop and it don't quit and it don't stop and it don't quit and it don't stop, cause the real never leave. Shall I proceed? Yes, indeed. Yes, yes, y'all. You don't stop to the beat, y'all. Rock on. Yes, yes, y'all. You don't stop. Say hip hop. Yes, yes, y'all. You don't stop to the beat, y'all. Rock on. Yes, yes, y'all. You don't stop to the beat, y'all. Rock on. And I find my jewelry in reading a book that's deep. At 3 minutes past 3 while Beat Street is on cable TV, so I'm getting Grandmaster flashbacks of the future where the White House is held hostage by hip-hop. Beholding a pale horseman while me, Tupac, and Biggie Smalls run for public office, my thoughts is grand. Glaring through my glasses, getting a glance of galaxies passing me by, riding on constellations. While they rhyme to be famous, I rhyme to be righteous. I rhyme to be right. Thanking God that I'm finding the light, trying to make sense of life, but I don't call it life, I call it learning, because you can't live without knowing that you're alive, and you and I, we're all alive. Once again, y'all, UnLearn the World, Marlon Richardson, Hip Hop for Change. Follow me on Instagram, follow Hip Hop for Change on Instagram. Shout out to everybody who's participated. Thank you so much. We're out of here.
Awesome, wonderful. And just in case y'all need it, his email is real easy. Just put the word unlearn in front of @hiphopforchange.org. Check him out if you need him as a resource. He's the man. All right. Are y'all ready for Ruby Ibarra, y'all? She's a representative of beat rock music, Born in the Philippines, moved out to San Lorenzo at age 4. Her talent and work ethic has allowed her to be featured in BuzzFeed, NPR, HuffPost, and just an amazing artist all around. One of the most important artist voices in the Bay Area that we got to offer right now. Ruby Ibarra, you here?
Check, check, check.
You're good. Welcome.
First of all, my name is Ruby Ibarra. Hi, everybody. Before I start my set, I just want to say it's an honor for me to be here with you all today. I'm from the Bay Area, home of the orange skies now, I guess. And I'm so glad to be part of this event, specifically through Hip Hop for Change. When I think about my experiences, specifically coming from the Bay, and hip hop to me growing up was something I naturally gravitated towards because of one, the culture and the community here in the Bay Area, but more so it taught me early on the power it has as a platform for the marginalized voices to be able to share their stories. And so I grew up in the 90s and I listened to artists like Pac and Lauryn Hill. And so for this event to be centered on Black and Asian American solidarity, I think it's more important than ever right now, as we've seen throughout this year with police brutality with the Black community and xenophobia with the Asian American community. Because for me, solidarity is transformative solidarity, seeking tangible change, breaking down systemic racism, capitalism, and anti-Blackness. I think for me, especially as an Asian American artist, one within hip hop where I'm just a guest in the space, I feel it's important for us to continue having dialogue around dismantling white supremacy, interrogating colorism, and reflecting these things in our art, but more importantly in our personal communities. With that being said, tonight, it's an honor for me to again be here to perform these two songs from my debut album called Circa 91, which is about my experience as a 1.5 generation immigrant Filipino American navigating this country and trying to discover and learn my identity. So this first song that I'd like to share with you all is called Playbills, and it's about corruption and how money filters from the top to the bottom. Can y'all hear the beat? I just want to say everyone that's presented tonight and performed has been amazing. We pay, they rob us. These snakes don't want us. Each day we all play this game that they taught us. In God that we trust, but they praying on us. If she ate, then we scrape till we hate and boast us. My mama's education no mean shit still. From mechanic to McDonald's to pay these bills. Trying to sell a soul just to make this deal. But the people in control are gonna hate me still. Trying to save face, paint us with a brown face. Colonizers that will never like how my name tastes. Made across the ocean, motherfuckers better make way. 7,000 miles that didn't want us in the first. These days, what's a pay rate for a briefcase? Time saved, that's a death rate, and it's prepaid, free wage, minimum pay, and no leeway. Wow, they throwing us fake just so we round face with some melee in my heyday. But wait, but you may late in your grave, wait, Mayday, play the game straight, or your meat bake, green face, or the ink taste when it bleed. Watch me make it rain, people don't know that I'm paid though. Watch me make it rain, I made that dollar from a peso. Watch me make it rain, watch me make it rain, yeah. Watch me make it rain, watch me make it rain. I said now watch me make it rain, people never know my face though. Watch me make it rain, I trade that dollar from a peso. Watch me make it rain, watch me make it rain, yeah. Watch me make it rain, watch me make it rain, yeah. Hey. Watch me make it rain, people don't know that I'm paid though. Watch me make it rain, I made that dollar from a peso. Watch me make it rain, watch me make it rain, yeah. Watch me make it rain, watch me make it rain. I said now watch me make it rain, people never know my face though. Watch me make it rain, I trade that dollar from a peso. Watch me make it rain, watch me make it rain, yeah. Watch me make it rain, watch me make it rain. rain. Kung pwede launta ako makakuwahin parta para ako makaginhawa o bago batratuwa ako kung mabusag pangin mestiza pat ako nitsura tutukita katong panig pasura paggamit na laking busag na pintura baganan pelikula at atong kultura pagkitat politika puro nabuwa oranhan Yolanda tago ang parte kinkuha baligya waray nakakita damon patay na ngan lulong na batang ang sekreto na ay napakiana isara ibaba ikaunit bala kinanat bahala ayo ka baraka kung natitinawa hirain mo kung nakuhanin at imo kwarta pura ako timbis tumulo sila at nakakainis paano kumita ng pera bit-bit ang hirap ng buhay tsaga at tiis palaging gipit wala bang hustisya sa ating bansa at lahat na lang puro peke at eto grabe marunong din ako gumante sa kurakot na negosyante at matapob watch me make it rain people don't know that I'm paid though watch me make it rain I made that dollar from a peso watch me make it rain watch me make it rain yeah watch me make it rain watch me make it rain I said now watch me make it rain people never know my face so watch me make it rain I trade that dollar from a peso. And this next track that I like to share with you all is called Us, and this song is about sisterhood, uplifting women, dismantling patriarchy, and discussing the effects of imperialism as well as colorism. Shout out to Rocky Rivera, Classy, and Faith Stanfilia, and shout out to Beat Rock Music, and a big shout out to Eric for inviting me to perform tonight. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ng yung ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ng yung ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Yo, fuck a story arc if it don't involve no matriarch. Some mothers work from the ground up, they craft in air like ATR with the butterfly sleeves. Sa kapilipinan na pag nagsalita, magaban na tayo bala. Huwag magtaka kung ako ay makatabulok na sistema ko rakot sa pera bagsak while we put in our heart into darkness. They putting these pigs in the office. You thinking you schooling but you hella lost cause you best see the boss while I talk this. But look at my actress, she moving so cold. Canada, her when she glow. Flick at the wrist with the ila she hold. Pananggo sa ila, she dripping in gold. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ng yung ugat. They got nothing on us, eh. Nothing on us, eh. Nothing on us, eh. Nothing on us. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ng yung ugat. They got nothing on us, nothing on us, nothing on us. Abani ko sa kamay at isang mikropono sabay. Ang tapang ko ganyan ng inay at halimaw nang sumasabay. Mga baran nyo lahat sablay, mga rappers na puro bangkay. Tinamaan ko lahat patay, kaya walang mag-iingay. I got that Filipino phenotype, kayo manggi mestizo white. But give me that moreno like, that Rufio Aquino type. My lawless navy speaking like those valley songs and bono knife. I breathe the ether, Nino hype, two tongues to sharper with the mic. A Nino in my history like, from a narrow greed is weaved in tight. They thieve until one piece of might just turn a Cino light. Hacienda like Aquino right, Rodrigo vigilante type. They kill my titos left and right when smoke and mirrors fill the night. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ng yung ugat. They got nothing on us, eh. Nothing on us, eh. Nothing on us, eh. Nothing on us. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ng yung ugat. They got nothing on us, eh. Nothing on us, eh. Nothing on us, eh. Isang bagsak. Once again, my name is Ruby Ibarra. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Yes. Awesome, y'all.
Awesome.
Make some noise.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone. I know we had technical difficulties, but everything has just been so amazing tonight that we're going to forget about all the technical difficulties. So we're going to now switch to a short question and answer session because we only have about 10 minutes left. And I just want to check, can everyone see me? Because my screen has frozen.
We see you.
Okay, great. Okay, I think my screen just looks different. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes, and so there's one question right now that is ready to go, but other people, if you have any questions for the artists today, and Ruby staying also to join our panelists and can be part of the conversation. Here's a question from Amelia. The model minority myth is also harmful, this is building off of Stephanie's presentation, because not all Asian demographics have equal access to resources, and the historical context for immigration varies greatly among different nationalities with regard to work visas, refugee status, immigration, legislation, etc. I'm curious about the panelists' thoughts on socioeconomic divisions within the various AAPI nationalities, ethnicities, and how that factors into AAPI representation, allyship, and activism overall.
Can I answer this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, as someone who is Southeast Asian, I definitely understand that frustration. Understand that Asia is often grouped into just China, Korea, Japan, when Asia is so expansive. There's South Asia and there's Southeast Asians, and we are completely different from East Asia. And how do we essentially build equity for them as well? It's about tackling anti-Blackness and colorism in our own communities. We also need to realize that we need more spaces for them to also empower themselves, and we need to give them images of Asian resistance, because all of our stories are not the same. I am personally here because I want for other Asian American activists and other youth to realize that Asian voices do exist. We are Southeast Asian, we are South Asian. A lot of us don't stem from East Asia, and we're here to represent our countries. We're here to show America and the world that our problems are very, very underrepresented, and it's our job essentially as allies, as activists, to show everyone that colonization wasn't the end of us. This is where we are now. We are the dragons again, and we're going to use our power to better represent our communities.
Thanks, Stephanie. Did anybody else want to talk about that question or add to what Stephanie said? Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Another question from Sandy is, how can we go see Jas's Pink Lady at the Asian Art Museum? Is it visible from the street? It will be visible from the street. It'll be part of our outdoor art terrace, which will be open air, so everyone will get to see it from the street. It's just not up yet. It will be, and it will be dazzling. So thanks for asking that. So another question I have while we're waiting for more questions to come in is, so I noted how Jas talked about how word of the Pink Lady spread in an organic way, and then social media came and spread the word about the Pink Lady and garnered all this international attention. And then I remember from Marlon's first song, he has a lyric that says, "You are not your Instagram, you are not your Facebook." And so we're caught in this tension when it comes to social media, that often social media is a way to become visible, to make the invisible visible. But there's also so much discord and so much disagreement and just so much hate on social media. I wonder how all of you as artists, what's your relationship to social media? And for our students, how can we help our students to understand how to maneuver through social media, you know, and use it as a tool to raise their voices, but also understand all the different noise that's out there? Do you have any thoughts on that? Any of our panelists?
Check. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Mark.
yes. It's a mixed bag, to be honest with you. I remember being 15 and watching a lecture from Bay Area-based Islamic scholar Hamza Youssef. And a point that he made, and this was in the 90s, where he said the problem with the internet is that it's a double-edged sword and there's no handle. So you're not able to like, you can't really get a good grip on it, right? Like the only thing we're in such a weird space now where reality is literally being augmented before our eyes, and social media is exacerbating this problem. So it's becoming increasingly difficult for not only grown people, but young people particularly, to navigate between what's real and what's not. We're having these conversations with regard to fake news, and we're dealing with a generation that literally grew up with this thing called reality television. So the lines between what's actual and what we perceive to be actual is very blurred, you know? And I think that any activist, I think one of your roles as an activist is to become aware and to become very hip to what's going on. I mean, you know, study social engineering and just study how corporations, governments not only like create and design whole, you know, neighborhoods and cities, but they also design the way that human beings behave and function, you know, and it's important to know that, because then this is what informs the way that you receive information. You know, you start to ask the important questions like, okay, I'm seeing this on the news. Is this a paid advertisement? Who are the people who are supporting these policies that are being promoted? We have to start asking questions, and we have to encourage our young people through whatever means and spheres of influence we have to start asking hard questions as to how this actually relates to their reality, to what they, you know, whatever information they're receiving, how it relates to the way they navigate through the world, how it's relevant to them on their day-to-day basis, and be able to pick out what works, what seems to make sense versus what doesn't, and really start digging deep to ask the questions to verify the truth. And it's in doing that is where you then start determining what's real, what's not, and how we can fashion our reality. But it starts with being educated enough to know what kind of questions to ask once you're given information.
Thanks, Marlon. Does anyone else want to chime in on that question? Given all your different ways of using social media or interacting on social media?
I can say something a little bit about the internship.
Thanks.
Yeah, so as this pandemic has been going on, social media really became our only voice to communicate with our audiences, which are families and youth within the Bay Area. And so social media has been this great tool for us to inspire creativity within families, and more recently through Artivism, also inspire activism into our audiences. So I think one struggle with social media is that it's like, especially on Instagram, people are focusing on certain aspects, like they follow famous people, they follow their friends. But recently, activism is coming to the forefront of social media as well. And I'm really happy to see that trend, because I know that for a lot of young people, social media is their access point to news and current events and knowing what's going on in the world. So as Marlon was saying, it's very important to be aware that you are in an echo chamber and be aware that there are fake news out there. But I think there's a huge potential for social media to turn into a legitimate forum and a place for discourse for young people in the next generation.
Thanks, Sophia. I see a question from Catherine. What would be the best piece of advice for students delving into different areas of art and creative writing? So anybody from our panel excited to jump in? What piece of advice would you give to students who are pursuing the arts right now and trying to express themselves during this difficult time?
Marlon should have this one.
As an educator, we're in a very interesting time, and I think, you know, I actually think it's, if I'm not mistaken, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's a Chinese saying, may you live in interesting times. Is that a Chinese saying? I know it's I just wanted to clarify. Yeah. But yeah, we are living in interesting times, and I think the primary goal of an artist is to experience first as a means and as a catalyst for creativity, right? We are here to reflect, and we serve as feedback mechanisms to the collective consciousness about the experience of human beings on this planet. and what we feel, what we go through. We are harbingers of the cultures and generations that came before us. And I think it's important for young people today to understand that power, to understand not only the power of your creativity, but the power of your attention. Your reality is literally created by what you pay attention to, right? You have to realize you have billion-dollar corporations that are also spending billions of dollars for 30 seconds of advertising time. That speaks to the value of your attention. If you have corporations spending billions of dollars just for 30 seconds of your attention, how valuable is your attention, right? And you are what you pay attention to. So if you're pursuing your inner dialogue, if you're pursuing your thoughts on politics, religion, spirituality, civil rights, social justice, whatever you're going through as a human being, I think creativity, however you find it, whether it's drawing, doing graffiti writing, or writing a verse, I think it's important to at least explore that. You don't have to be a rap star. Let's get that out the way. You don't have to be. I think people often conflate creativity with fame, and that in order for you to be creative, you have to do so with the goal of being famous. And I think fame and the commodification of creativity comes in the way of the art in and of itself. And I would just start with understanding the power, the inherent power of being able to create from nothing. Right? Whole cities and buildings are created from people's brains. It never ceases to amaze me just in my own creative work. Like creating an album and the process by which you create an album for the rest of the world to consume starts in your house. It starts in your room. For me, like I've been able to travel the world from this desire I had in a 5th floor apartment in New York City when I was 13. And now I've been able to use that as the catalyst to travel the world. That to me is never lost on me, and I think it's nothing short of a miracle. And I by no accounts would I consider myself a famous artist, but I think that if you just start focusing on the creativity and start focusing on the expression thereof, then you're in a better position than most people on earth to liberate your own mind and to emancipate others and have them follow suit through inspiration.
I liked what you said about liberating your own mind first before you can emancipate others or help others. Thanks, Marlon. I have a question for Sai Ho, and it'll then be the bigger question for everybody in this panel, because we're going to have to wrap up soon. Sai Ho, so you're going to be part of our After Hope installation, and I'm wondering how your music is related to the idea of hope. Where do you see hope in your work? How does your work generate hope? Given we saw your Black Moon video, we saw your lyrics, which were quite dark, but then how do we chase after hope by listening to your music? Can you say some more about that? And then I'd like to ask the rest of the group to think about that idea of hope. Okay, go ahead, Sai Ho.
Well, I think like what Marlon said, I think the expression and it's a key thing, and it's important. And I think if you have something you want to say it, and you can say it through the artworks, and also I think nowadays the dialogue is important, and the dialogue can be an artwork, can be an online talk, or can be an exhibition, and I think the idea exchange and also and I also like to say that about the question about your question, the social media thing. I think 2 words. Fact check. You cannot see it. Fact check. So once you do more research on social media, then we will get a more better or clear picture. And and I think in a way there are some alternatives on exploring what we call hope. And it's not always you have to be very positive energy thing, and it can be something, can I call it stylish? Something alternatives and stylish and other way to maybe it's the same goal at the end. So yeah, I hope I can answer your question.
No, that it can take many forms, is what you're saying.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I love, and someone else in the chat said, we love what you just said about fact checking and doing your research. But,
that's the way we deal with the fake news. And
thanks, Michael. And then the larger
welcome.
question to wrap up this whole program is, again, based, that idea of hope or joy. How do you find joy in your work when everything just is so difficult right now with the pandemic and all the social upheaval? Everybody, just one last thought on how you find joy in your work, in your art, in your activism, in just sharing your gifts with the world. Can you, everybody, just say one last thing? Jas, do you mind starting us off?
Sure. But I think I'm just personally, I'm a very optimistic person. When things are going bad, I always feel that it could be that if we have the right mindset, things can work out, and if we stay positive, we'll just attract positive energy. And so I feel that maybe today, all the young influencers, whatever they're into, whether they're into their clothes or their music or whatever, I feel like everybody who has a platform that has a following should talk more about hope, should talk more about positivity, and because it really, really is a mindset. What we think, we will get. So if we think positive, we will get positivity back. And if you can just imagine if the masses would do that, I feel like a lot of things would change. And I forgot to mention, even with the Pink Lady, she was created during an awful incident. But a lot of people had come out to voice their rage and ask for change for the first time. There were so many people who did it for the first time. That was a good thing that had happened. And with the Pink Lady, she's got her scarf pulled back, but she's got a thumbs up. So that's my indication of, there always is hope. Good things can happen if we just start thinking positively and looking for positive stuff.
Thanks, Jas.
So I encourage a lot of influencers to, encourage others that need to hear that need to hear.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I love the idea of remembering the thumbs up as a sign of hope.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, can you add your ideas on how to stay hopeful or to find joy in this difficult work we're all doing?
Hi, okay. I'm just gonna keep it short, but you can't wait for hope. You have to be hope. And there are people out there waiting for you to change the world, because the world isn't gonna change overnight. So if not us, then who? If not now, then when? It's up to all of us, especially the younger generation, who have been tasked with inheriting the revolution, for us to continue to fight forward. And however you find your way of igniting that flame, just go for it. Activism has many lanes. And I just want to say, if anyone else has any other questions, you can email me at stephanie@hiphopforchange.org. I know Patricia has a question, and I actually specialize in this in my research, so go ahead. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Stephanie. Khafre, what are your thoughts on maintaining hope or staying joyful?
You know what? I think the thing that keeps me, because this world is crazy, and I'm not gonna put my next few paychecks on predicting outcomes, but what I would put my next few paychecks on betting on is my community. People like Steph and Marlon and Latoya and Hema and Eric, who I work with in the larger community. Like, when you work with your people, like, you can move mountains. And I might not be able to fix the world, I can fix a little bit of East Oakland with this really amazing crew of people that I work with, and it's just a joy to be able to spend my time trying to create that change, no matter what the outcome is. You know, we're not entitled to any outcome, but I can definitely use the breath that I have while here in investing in cool platforms. So my suggestion for everybody who's missing out on a little bit of hope is just spend some of your time trying to create some good stuff, and then it's infectious. You get hopeful. Surround yourself with people like the folks on this Zoom. You know, that's why we reached out to you folks at the Asian Art Museum, and our community grows, and then beautiful stuff comes out of it. So, you know, I think like Stephanie said, it's up to us to create that space, and we should make sure that we know our time is the most valuable thing we have. Whoever we choose to sell it to, they better be worth our time. Whoever we choose to give it to, they better be worth what we're trying to create. So we only have so much of it.
Thanks, Khafre. And then Ruby, did you want to chime in also about hope or joy, how to keep going?
So hope during these times of a pandemic, you know, specifically speaking for the artists out there, I just want to quickly say that it's important to remember that it's okay to not be busy. It's okay to rest and take care of yourself. I think that self-care and prioritizing my mental health for me gives me hope personally. And again, on the topic of hope, number one, no one can tell your story for you but you. I think that's why it's important for you to share who you are and to never compromise that. When I think about social media, as was discussed previously, I'm also reminded, you know, just how saturated the content is out there. So if you're yourself, if you are telling your story yourself, only the best way that you can through your own lens, I think that you'll be one of a kind, and at least one person out there will be able to identify with your story. So in that sense, if other people are identifying with what you have to say, you're giving authentic hope to someone else by being your authentic self. And like Sai Ho said earlier, hope can come in many forms. So for me, hope doesn't have to come from positivity. It can come from pain too.
Thank you. We're running just about out of time, so I'm gonna have to wrap things up. I have to thank everybody who joined us tonight, our panelists, our performers, our students. Thank you so much. I also want to thank our supporters at the museum, Abby Chen, the curator who helped us put this together, Deb Clearwaters, Rob Mintz, Jay Shu, thank you so much for your support. Stay in touch, everybody. Everything that was said tonight just was so inspiring and is helping me, I'm hopeful it's helping all of us to see we can do this, we can get through this, and hopefully we can all come back together and sing and dance and share poetry at the museum. Let's do it. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night.